Hey, what's up everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. Haven't done one of these in a while, in the dark. I'm sure you can't see me. This is something I used to do a lot. Probably will do them again in the future, but it just hasn't really made any sense to do that, given the fact that it's never actually that dark when I make these videos these days. I haven't made any videos at night in a long time, but it's a normal thing on my channel. If you go back in history, you'll see hundreds of these. But anyway, I had a dream that I wanted to share. And it's like 6 in the morning, exactly 6 in the morning. I'm in the hotel right now. Tomorrow, or today rather, I'm be going back over to get my contract settled in. And yesterday was a challenge, trying to find this place, and going all over the place trying to basically find a hotel that would take my card and all this stuff. So it all worked out in the end. I'm in a very nice room, had a great night's sleep, great shower, everything was great. Went to sleep around, I'd say probably about 10:30, something like that. I'm not really sure, but I dreamt that I was first at some type of pool party or something like that. I think LeBron James was there, and it's like a huge pool party. Remind me of something that I remember from when I was at the Boys and Girls Club, children's clubs back in the day. That type of environment where everybody was in the pool at once. It was like 100 people in a dang pool, and we were all, just enjoying the fact that it was a sunny day. And then the other side of the property was like a basketball court, so they had like a family basketball game going on where there was a bunch of kids playing with grown-ups and stuff like that in the other room. Sort of like how the Boys and Girls Club was set up. It looked like that setting. But I'm diving in the pool, I'm swimming around and all of this and that. And as I'm getting out of the pool, a good friend of mine's mom is there. And I had my towel over me, and I dried off a little bit and gave her a hug. And she extended the hug in such a way that she was trying to say something to me. Now, her son was in the pool. And I was getting out of the pool area. So it's like my perspective, for whatever reason, was as if her back was to the pool. So it was kind of weird. But it wasn't a strange, uncomfortable hug. It was more like she was trying to tell me something that she didn't really want her son to hear her tell me. That's what it was. And nothing weird, nothing funky about that. It was more so like, I'm trying to tell him something, but as she's whispering in my ear, I can't make out a thing that she's saying. But I heard the word money, and I heard the word hard times, and it seemed to me she was saying something like, my son is going through some difficulties. He lost his job or something like that. He don't want nobody to know, but I found out. If he asks you for money, please give him whatever you can, and I will forward it back to you. That's essentially what I thought she was saying. And I told her, of course, like that go without saying. That's my brother, and she's like a mom to me. So it's like, yeah, I'm gonna do that without even you telling me that. But she wanted me to know like something. And I guess after that, I got away from the pool area, and the dream fast forwarded in such a way where I'm in a weird setting. It looked like we were in the best place I know how to describe it. Looked like Mexico or somewhere over in South America, something like that, where the streets are very narrow, lots of hills, area where not a lot of money is found. And it was a bad car accident. It looked like some type of van had flipped upside down, and we were driving down these narrow streets that could only look like either in San Francisco, where the streets are really narrow, coming down hills. You have to bend around in some very, very sharp turns in order to get down those streets, or in somewhere like Colombia or something like that. It was hard to really, Brazil or something. It was hard to make out where I was. But there was a car accident as we were coming down this hill that spent all the way around in a circle. You could see that the thing had flipped over, and the paramedics were trying to address it. And it was one of those situations where it was almost like that was an afterthought, but like you're driving past it. But I'm in the car with the same lady, and she's essentially, telling me we're in a difficult neighborhood, and people are poor over here, something like that. And I wasn't really trying to, alarm her, but I'm like, yo, we got to pay attention to the road because they flipped over because they were not able to kind of navigate these really narrow streets. But I'm listening to her. It looked like she knew what she was doing. She just looked like an area she probably grew up in or whatever. And it's one of those situations where I think this dream skipped off into a different way. It almost looked like we skipped off into the inside of another same type of layout, but an entirely different setting, to where we're in like a parking structure that has that same type of driving around. It looked almost like the Beverly Center parking lot. I don't know if anybody would be familiar with that if you're in LA. It looked like we were in there, but it was more narrow, as if you're just driving in a circle trying to either go up after paying or come back down after the paying. I couldn't figure it out, but that's kind of how the setting was. It's like we skipped to that after we left that area that was poor, but same type of thing. So we were like, she was asking me, did I understand what she was trying to express when she was talking to me at the pool area. She was asking me, like, did I get it? And I told her, I was like, yeah, I think you were trying to tell me that he's not doing well, and if I have any money to give him. She was like, no, that wasn't what I was saying at all. I was like, well, I wasn't able to make it out because there was so many people there and you were whispering so low. She was like, no, son, I want to know what's going on with you. She was saying, why have you, what's keeping you from working? That's what she was saying. She was asking me at the pool. She's like, you're living in a very difficult way. Why aren't you working? Why aren't you working your way out of the situation? Why would you allow your situation to get so bad when you're living in such hard times? Like, your solution is a job, but you're not working. Why? What is that? And I told her, I was like, oh, so you're asking me about my mental health? And she was like, yeah, what is the situation? And I proceeded to tell her, like, I have some type of anxiety slash trauma issue that has kept me from allowing myself to work. But during certain times in my life, that's not necessarily the case. There's no rhyme or reason to it, but we're trying to figure it out. My therapist and I, we're trying to figure it out. And after that, it went from her driving the car to me driving the car, trying to go around the little steep bend or whatever it is. And it was a situation where I'm parked in such a way to let pedestrians walk rather across the car in front of me, or across in front of my car is what I'm trying to say. It was like a bunch of people going into the structure of the Beverly Center or whatever this place is. And after she asked me that question, I guess it made it so that I didn't have patience to let them walk. It was almost like I was pressing the gas, not hard, but as if I wanted to move around them. Right? It's like they're trying to walk. I'm obviously supposed to give them the right of way. But once she asked me that question, it almost like made me super anxious and uncomfortable, or whatever the case may be. And as I'm swerving around them to keep from hitting them, I end up driving out of the parking structure and we're on like the seventh or eighth floor. I end up going off the side of the parking structure, and the car falls all the way down. Like, as I'm trying to swerve around them, the way it's set up is you don't even have the room to do that. You either let them go. If you try to go around them, you're driving off of out of the parking structure. You are literally breaking the barrier and falling to your doom. And that's exactly what happened. And when I woke up, you survive that because it's a dream, right? And that's the purpose of the dream, is to do things that are impossible. So after we crash, fall to our doom, on the way down, I could hear her. She said she was calling herself a bunch of names. She blamed herself for why I lost my my stuff, I guess you could say. I don't obviously it wasn't her fault. I was just being impatient, but it was almost like we were falling slow. And she was saying, stupid, this is my fault. I should not have said that. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have pressed the issue all the way down. And when I woke up out of that situation, or reanimated or whatever, came back to life, I picked up my phone. I was standing outside in some random street. It seemed like something that I had never seen before. I was standing outside and I went to call her. It was like I picked up the phone and I called my friend's mom, and I was going to explain to her that it wasn't her fault that I did that. I was just losing patience with them people walking across. It seemed like they just kept coming. That's what I was saying. Like, I was ready to get out of there, and it just seemed like there was more people continuing to walk in front of the car, and I just figured I could swerve around them and misjudged it, and that's what happened to us. But essentially, what I also wanted to explain to her was the rest of the dream. It was like, or rather, the rest of my explanation for what she was asking is essentially what I'm trying to express. And I ended up waking up right after that, without getting a chance to actually tell her the rest of what I was trying to say. But I woke up out of that dream and kind of like understanding that, I gotta first of all stay patient, keep my hands on the wheel, and not lose patience with circumstances as they're coming my way. I think I've handled those things very well lately, but very easily you could lose patience and drive straight off a cliff, figuratively. And to understand that, I am allowing myself to get into some situations, and have been since, well before I was evicted a year ago, that are preventable by working. And anybody can find themselves in the situation I'm in, but very few would ever actually let it happen. And that's really what I understand, and how abnormal that is for somebody else to try to see that from the outside looking in. It's why I felt so impatient when she asked me, when she clarified what she was initially asking me. It's because that's really what I've been dealing with all my life, is trying to explain to people why I wouldn't either go to school when I was struggling with it, go to work in eras where, like this one, and there was never no real explanation that I could give people, and it was never really satisfactory. And I think me driving off a cliff was a representation of my frustration with being different in that way, and not being able to explain it to people because I really didn't understand it, and still don't. Would I allow myself to suffer? And not only that, but if she were to ask me to help her son, why I wouldn't have the money to do it? What would make it so that I wouldn't be in a position to help others financially? And the answer is because I haven't taken the steps to fix my problem, to pull myself out of this. Instead, I've allowed myself to sit in it, to keep from having to go do the things that are necessary to get me out of it. And so, it was one of those situations where it was like, I really don't know what the science was in the dream behind her not wanting her son to hear the answer to that question, or see her asking me that question. Nor do I understand why in the dream she blamed herself for my misaction after asking the question we were writing, or whatever it was. I don't think she did anything that would be different than anyone else, wanting to know why a person is willing to go through what I put myself through to keep from just simply having a job. But I think at the end of the day, as I've had many conversations on this channel, I just think that I'm wired a certain way to do what it is the Lord wants me to do. And if I were doing the things I was quote unquote supposed to be doing based on society's demands, then I would have never done some of the things that I think the Lord actually preferred I do with my time and my voice over the last couple of years. And this is just how it looks when a person takes that chance to follow what comes naturally, even if what comes naturally brings about consequences that are much more difficult for themselves and those who help them. And, after the day I had yesterday, this just further reinforces why it is necessary people do what they need to do to make money in this world. Do what they have to do so that they don't fall themselves into situations where they're leaning on family, or if they don't have it, living outside. And for myself, it's like that's common sense. But the temperament from which to follow the path of the more wiser choice pulls me away from what it is that I feel comes naturally to me, and puts me into a space where mentally I'm unstable. That's what I perceive it to be. That's not what it always is, as I was explaining to her in the dream. It's not always like that. There are times where I'll keep a job for 3 years, be there every day, and feel comfortable in that routine. But after I left my last job, I just felt like I did when I was a child, when I couldn't convince myself to go to school, even when, my mother was telling me she would take me to the police station, and how frustrated she was getting that I wouldn't go. That for which is awry in me, or whatever it is that the Lord wired this way, was willing to take on the worst of the consequences to keep from having to do it. And I don't think I've ever found a way to change that, even through getting help for the last year. It's not something that I really have any understanding or hold of at all. And it's why my life is taking the different turns that it's taken, and trying to remain stable and positive. I think I've done a very good job taking on, what the consequences have been. And I think my family's done an even better job of keeping me afloat. And I don't know what the solution is to relieve them of that financial circumstance or burden. And I don't know what is going to unwire my head to get back to work and contribute to my own stability. Especially now that I equate a lot of what it is that requires to be done with contributing to a society that intends to suffer others the ills of our tax dollars. That makes me even less inspired to go back to work. Having so much knowledge and consciousness of the evil that our money is doing. Excuse me. And so as a person who doesn't want to figuratively drive off a cliff, least of all with anybody else in the car, I don't want to avoid the reality of what it is that my mental health challenge is, nor do I want to feel uncomfortable when asked about it. And I don't know how to fix either of those problems. But I do know how to turn on this channel and utilize my experience to make content and ultimately provide some commentary from within this perspective. And by way of that challenge, I've been able to also utilize my channel for other things, which I think are much more important in my perspective. including trying my best to raise awareness for what it is I just described. And as hard as I feel like I may have it, I understand that I'm not going through anything that's even remotely challenging in comparison to those who are going through that. Although a lot of my challenges are mental, a lot of the stuff that I struggle with, I'm also in control of. I also feel that this is on purpose, and that the Lord, the God I believe in, put me in a position to be this way very deliberately, so that I would be wired just right to do what it is I'm doing right now. It made me honest. In a world full of people who feel like they're either forced to lie based on their politics or choose to lie based on their selfishness, He made me incredibly honest with this challenge on top of it. And I just at this point kind of go with it and hope that He'll do something to relieve not only myself but my family of the burden of hope taking care of me. That He would condition me for not only enduring the difficulties of not working, but maybe even condition me for finding a way to get $1 or $2 as well. But that has yet to be inspired within me, and I'm getting older by the second, and opportunities at normalcy is going by the wayside. I feel like my body, even though I'm working hard on taking care of myself, I feel like my body's kind of going the other way as it pertains to getting older, and I just don't really know where this thing is headed. But what I can say is I intend to stay under control and handle my difficulties with a good, patient attitude, not to lose patience as it pertains to, doing anything that remotely looked like what was going on in that dream. And be more patient with people who don't understand me or don't know me. A lot more patient with people who are trying to figure out why a person like me is the way that I am when they figure it out, as I'm still trying to figure it out while being this person. I think at the end of the day, man, nobody wants to go through hard times or coerce themselves into difficulty. If you are going through anything mental and you are having a hard time overcoming it, and people can't speak reason into your behavior or reason into your actions, do know that I understand that. Do know that people have been trying to speak reason into me in regards to my choices to stay away from work and school, and my perception of those challenges being a better path to stay away from than the difficulties that comes with not doing it, and how awry that looks to everyone, including myself, and that I would still choose it, and how confusing that is to be on your end trying to figure it out, and how confusing it is to be on my end and living it out. I'm not giving up. I don't feel like I did last year when things were too much. I actually feel pretty confident that I have plenty left to give, that I can endure even more. But for whatever reason, I wake up this morning feeling the exact same way I've always felt when it comes to wanting to coerce myself away from things that are solutions in that way. Going back to work, going to school, two things that I've just chosen to take the other route and whatever comes with it. It's not the way that I think a person who's not challenged will behave or choose. And that's why I've been trying to get help for this, just the same. That's why I've been trying to apply for different things that I've been denied for, like SSI, for example, Social Security checks that'll help a person with mental health concerns financially. Because my concerns are extensive. My challenges are life controlling. And although I articulate myself well and can present myself pretty well, common sense, good with space in regards to giving people their space, there's still some things inside of my mind that keep me from taking paths of solutions that would otherwise relieve me of all of the most difficult struggles of my experiences. And yet I choose the more difficult struggle because it feels like the only path for me. Even sober, I was struggling with that as a child. Before I started finding weed, I struggled with that to a degree at times when I was smoking weed, and now that I've been off marijuana for a year, I still struggle with that. Minus the depression, but it's still the same actions chosen. Same parameters, fears, timid nature, or whatever the word would be as it pertains to venturing into those spaces. I don't think I'm getting any better in that way. So, I just wanted to give people an update since that dream provided so much. I know I misspoke a lot, but it's early in the morning. I'm still in bed, so forgive me for that, but I just wanted people to know where I'm at. I want people to know that I'm nowhere near ready to go back to work, even though this last couple of days have been preventable by the course of having a simple 9 to 5 or some type of way to make a cash flow come through consistently. All of those paths are paths that I would rather not be on. I would rather be on this path where days are hard and I gotta take all my stuff in and out of hotel rooms every 3 weeks. And that rather aspect of my brain is exactly where the mental health challenge is. I was hoping that someday somebody would discover my channel and have some understanding as it pertains to maybe a doctor providing some type of diagnosis for this, or having some other case studies where they've seen this before. And I'm still holding out hope that that will someday be the case, or somebody can make some sense of what it is that I've struggled with all my life. If there's some rhyme or reason to this. But as of now, I'm still without understanding. And so I have another therapy session on the 3rd of this week, which today is the 1st, so that will be a couple days from now. And I hope we're getting that much closer to either fixing my problem or diagnosing it, so that I can be able to explain to people, like my friend's mom, what is actually going on there. Because as of right now, just like I was struggling to tell her in the dream, I'm struggling to understand it myself. So that's really what it is, man. I'm in a hotel room feeling pretty good, but my life could be a lot easier if I were willing to take the path that everyone normally does, which is to fix their problem by working. And I perceive working as the worst path. And I always have. That's the truth of it. I may have been able to work through it at times, but I'm not able to right now. And I don't really know what God wants to do with me in that way. If he wants me to go back to work and I'm being defiant, I stopped thinking that a while back. I feel like everything that I've been dealing with in this situation has been blessed with favor, for which I don't take for granted. But I don't know where this is headed. Just the same. I don't perceive that everything that I got going on in my head should be this way as it pertains to my choices. I don't think that this is what God wants either. It's probably some sweet medium that I have yet to choose. But I don't know. I really have no idea. And so that's really what it comes down to. For those who are wondering where the solution will be, I can tell you I'm not quitting. My family has helped me in such a way to keep my stresses down. I'm not owed that. I'm thankful for that. I don't know that it can last forever. Don't believe it can. And that's why I'm continuing to fight for solutions, using this channel and looking toward, meeting all of my expectations for therapy sessions with my therapist. And, whatever she wants to do, I'm willing to take those steps to try to incorporate more stress into my life. That is small increments to make me more strong in that way. But I don't know if that's the answer. I don't know. When I first started doing therapy, that was what she was suggesting. Let's try to incorporate small amounts of things that would otherwise be deemed stressful so that we can work up your tolerance for stress. But I'm starting to realize I'm always taking on some type of stress being in the situation I'm in. I don't know that we're diagnosing that aspect of it properly. I don't know if that's really where the crux of the issue actually is, because when I deal with what I dealt with yesterday, and I deal with some of the things I've been dealing with these last 3 weeks in that room, I've been handling my stress very well. I think we're getting better in that way, but I don't think that's where the problem lies, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm growing more of a patience and tolerance for stress, but nowhere near ready to venture into spaces that would allow me to work. I think the best way I know how to describe that, what I'm feeling is, once I get a job, that's forever. I feel like that's a space from which I can't escape. And I think that's what I'm trying to avoid. I felt the same way about school. It was a cycle I hated that I could never get out of. It's like I'm walking into a hell that never ends. And I'm supposed to have a respect for what comes with it, like the money that comes with it. And I just don't deem money worth it. That's where the society I'm in has been coerced and raised to believe that money is the most important thing. I reject it entirely. I believe my comfort in what I'm doing from hour to hour, day to day, is much more valuable to me than the small amounts of money that they're willing to give me for my suffering, or how I deem it. And I see people doing things they got no business for money every day, and I reject it. I rebel against it. I think that's a better way to describe what it actually is. It's defiance to the status quo, or whatever you call that. It's defiance to what it is that I think is warped about us. It's my stance against what it is that ultimately I feel is wicked. It's listening to a story that's going around of people in Tennessee working at some type of factory. Their bosses left the factory because the storm was coming. A storm that's killing a lot of people right now. And essentially, he allegedly, although he's denying this, they're denying this as a company, told all their employees they had to stay as the storm was coming, and if they left before the water got waist deep, they would be fired. They could choose their jobs, or they could choose their lives. And a lot of those people chose their jobs and they lost their lives. They ain't found nobody that worked in that factory except for the people who they found dead. It's that right there. If you want to know what I think I've actually done, is reject that. Whatever money you want to give me, little increments of cash, it's not worth it. to me to do things that I don't want to do. Throughout the course of my day, the things that people do to make money, slave over whatever they do, I give it the finger. I think that's what it really comes down to. I reject your money. I reject the notion of what it is that your capitalism's about. I think that's the crux of my choices making, my decision making. I think that's where it actually is. I don't think it really is fear. I think it's rebellion. And the older I get, the more I put myself through these difficulties, the more I look back on how I felt. It was rebellion. I didn't want to go to school because I thought they were putting stuff in our brains that wasn't important. It wasn't teaching us the truth, coercing us into being worker bees, and ultimately putting things in our mind that would allow us to turn off our compassion and turn on our capitalistic hunger. As I grow older, it's really what I've been coming to realize is that I reject all of that. That I'm supposed to do something that I'm not wired to do so that you can give me a small portion of what it is I'm due, only for you to make 10 times that if you're my boss off of what it is I'm doing. Sitting up doing things that you love to do, getting rich off that, rising up the capitalistic ladder off of that, while I stay capped off at worker bee for the rest of my life, only to be fired at random. I just reject the whole process. I think it's all wicked. It goes against the very nature of what it is I am as a creative. And that I'm supposed to do all of these things for money. Take what it is that I create, sell it, price it up so that people will give me more than what it's worth or less than what it's worth, or whatever the case may be. It's just a whole process that I just think it's against my spirit for whatever reason. And the older I get, the more I become aware of what's going on and how warped our society is in this country and how warped the Western world is. The more I realize I had it right. That if I want to do things the right way as it pertains to compassion and valuing the things that the Lord put for us on this earth to actually value, then you will reject everything that I've rejected and you will take the other path. It's not that there's anything wrong with me, it's that I'm the only one that got it right. And this is what it looks like. That's what I'm starting to believe. That's like the notion that's been in the back of my mind as I've struggled with not society says is normal or not normal. Like there would have to be something wrong with me if I didn't want to contribute to capitalism. There has to be something wrong with me if I didn't want to align with school, which would teach me how to work to become as dystopian as most of you are when it comes to this genocide. I rejected the training, the propaganda, the alignment of becoming a Western mind. I rejected it so that I could peer from behind it well enough to do what it is that I've done, which is tell the truth about it. I didn't want to work because the process is wicked. It's evil. The whole thing. And I felt it in my spirit, and I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And the times when I did work, I was doing what I shouldn't have been doing. And usually ended in a way that made me understand that after a while. That's the God's honest truth. It felt wrong. Doing what needed to be done felt wrong. It's the God's honest truth. As I wake up this morning, it still does. The way we value money, the way that we do capitalism, the whole thing, rising to the top, discarding of others, giving charity and feeling like that's enough while people suffer. It's wrong. And I don't want to have anything to do with it. I never have. Even as a small child, I could feel how wrong it was. And that's why I rejected it completely. And trying to make sense of it in this society, within this place, the only way you can make sense of it is if there was something wrong with me. The reality was, my morality and my moral compass was pointed at God, directly at him. And what he was showing me is that I was in a space of Sodom and Gomorrah, and that everybody around me was choosing themselves over him. And by way of doing so, they were aligned with the way the society set them up to be. That's what the truth actually is about me. And God wanted me to stay away from a lot of the stuff that y'all do just to make it away for yourself, because in making a way for yourself in this place, you got to do away with what it is that he really wants you to do in the first place. My name is BDL44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.